Try it one more time. You try it like in bed. Thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I call to order this meeting of the Coweta County Board of Education, June 8th, 2021, Agenda 753. If everyone will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Second. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Recognitions, Dr. Horton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. At this time, I'll call on Coweta County School System Director of Public Policy and CEO of Central Educational Center, Mr. Mark Whitlock.
Thank you, Dr. Horton. After the EF4 tornado on March 26th, I think the character of this community was shown in the collaboration between West Georgia Technical College and Atkinson Elementary School. We've got some folks who can speak to that this evening, and we wanted to give special recognition to Dr. Julie Post, the president of West Georgia Tech, Dr. Tanya Whitlock, the Vice President of West Georgia Tech. And we wanted to thank Mr. Ben Tarleton, the leader of Atkinson Elementary School, for great leadership during this time. Let me first introduce Mr. Tarleton.
So good afternoon. I can't tell you how much West Georgia Technical College means to Atkinson Elementary School. They stepped in, they opened their doors, they treated us like family, they welcomed us in, they helped us every day. They were just fantastic the entire time we were there. Like I said, they treated us like family. We all became family. They helped us with, they provided t-shirts, they provided awards documents. Kids thought they graduated from college. I said, you still got to come back next year to Atkinson, okay? But they were just fantastic from the very beginning, and we cannot thank them enough for what they gave us.
Yeah, let me remind you that West Georgia Technical College was able to house Atkinson Elementary School for the last 7 weeks of the school year, so that our students could go back to school in person, continue learning, and finish the year strong. Citing research and data, the writer noted two-year colleges can play a significant role in economic development. For example, 80% of credentialed first responders in our country were trained in community colleges. Having been in existence for over 110 years, two-year colleges have always been known for being flexible and rapidly responsive to learner and community needs. Now, that passage comes from the role of dual enrollment in the educational achievement of technical college students, which was named the Outstanding Dissertation of the Year by the University Council on Workforce and Human Resource Education after it was developed and written by Dr. Julie Post in 2013 as she completed the Doctor of Education degree from the University of Georgia. Dr. Post has a rich educational background in secondary and post-secondary education, as well as higher ed administration. After serving as a high school teacher and then an adjunct instructor, she joined Gwinnett Technical College in 2005. For 16 years, she served in key leadership roles in areas like institutional research and effectiveness, and as vice president for student affairs. This year, she was named by Commissioner Dozier and the board of the Technical College System of Georgia as the president of West Georgia Technical College, one of the largest of our 22 technical colleges in Georgia, serving 7 counties in our region. Dr. Tanya Whitlock is the Vice President of Student Affairs for West Georgia Tech. Dr. Whitlock earned her doctorate in educational leadership from Mercer University and has 24 years of higher ed experience. She's served West Georgia Tech in leadership roles since 2006. Among those leadership roles, it was Dr. Whitlock who helped to build college enrollment at CEC long before the creation of the Coweta campus on Turkey Creek Road. In her current role, she provides the leadership for student affairs and enrollment services. She has leadership responsibility for our Coweta campus of West Georgia Tech. And among her other leadership roles in the community, Dr. Whitlock is a member of the Piedmont Noonan Hospital Board of Directors. So let me first introduce and welcome Dr. Julie Post.
I'm not sure what else there is for me to say at this point, but I'm honored to be here tonight. I've on the job, I think, 32 days or something at this point. So I feel almost guilty taking the credit for all the work that has been done, because when the tornadoes went through, I was in the middle of the interview process, and the last thing you can do is call the school that you're interviewing for and say, oh my gosh, is everyone okay? So when I heard about the unique partnership that happened with Atkinson Elementary, it just, it warmed my heart. So I want to just say that we're honored as West Georgia Tech to have been able to do that for this community. This is why we're here. We're not here to do anything but educate our community, to serve our businesses, to serve the families. So when this tragedy happened, it was kind of an opportune time for us as well. Enrollment wasn't quite what it is because of the pandemic, and so the stars just aligned, as Dr. Whitlock says all the time, and we couldn't be happier that we were able to do this. I was on campus while they were there, and I think you probably cannot understand the vitality and the energy it brought to the campus. It pepped everyone's spirit to see them in that makeshift cafeteria outside and to be at recess, and I want to go play too. That's what the staff would say. So it was really great. It was just great to do that and to be able to take them on tours. And, they are going to come back because we use this as a time to recruit, So, so we hope that, the exposure during a really tragic situation turned out to be what might be something that made a difference in those students' careers and lives in the future. And partnerships are what we're about. West Georgia Tech has had a long history with the Coweta County school system. The CEC, under, the most famous dual enrollment person who I interviewed for my dissertation, thank you, is known across the state and even further all over the Southeast, replicated more than 50 times. So we start with that. Now, what I tout all the time now when I talk about West Georgia Tech is partnerships, and the latest being of the greatest in nature is all the German apprenticeship work that's going on between the CEC and West Georgia Tech, and it is amazing what we're being able to do for the students of this community. So that's what we're about. So I'm honored that you have asked us to be here tonight, but we thank you for the opportunity because this is what we're about, is serving the community. I do want to make sure that everyone stand up, Dr. Whitlock, and come up here. I wasn't here when it started, and this lady here championed all of the efforts and worked with Mr. Tarleton and got the faculty and staff for the end of the year fun days, field days they did, and they were just thrilled to be able to participate in that. So really the thanks goes to Dr. Whitlock for all of her hard work, but on behalf of the college, just thank you for giving us the opportunity to do something different and continue a great partnership between both of the systems. So thank you very much, and I want to quote H.E. Luckock, "No one can whistle a symphony. It takes a whole orchestra to play it," and so we will continue to develop that orchestra together, I hope. So congratulations to finishing out the school year successfully, and anytime we'll welcome those students back.
if I could just briefly say, just as a District 5 rep, I represent Atkinson. And so when I went over there, the few times I did, you can just feel, it's like, you know, when you go somewhere and it just feels good, you can tell they really opened us with open arms. So I just want y'all to know, from me, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 11th, 2021, and the called minutes of May 18th, 2021?
Motion to approve the 11th, but I can't make a motion on the 18th because I wasn't here for
All
that
right.
meeting.
I'll make a motion for the called meeting.
Okay,
18th,
well, let's
yes.
take them separately, so,
Okay,
and that way
okay.
we can vote on them separately.
Okay.
So a motion for the May 11th,
Yes,
2021.
And I'll second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries 7-0. And now for the called minutes of the May 18th, 2021.
And I'll make a motion to
And I'll
approve those.
second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, you were not, Ms. Mink, you were not at the one, so, okay, so you were not here on the 18th either? Okay, so motion carries. All right, we have a motion and a second. We discussed, all right, and all those in favor, please raise your hand. 5, and then 2 abstain since they were not present. All right, action item group 1, Dr. Horton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The first action item I have for you in Group 1 tonight is to approve the FY 2021-2022 GSBA Assembly Solutions Module Subscription Renewal and Policy Maintenance Service. Assembly Solutions is an online service that allows for public posting of policies, laws, our strategic plan, and our meeting documents. It also allows alignment of these important documents. I recommend approval of the module subscription and policy maintenance service in the total amount of $18,320. The invoice is attached, so I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent. Do I have a motion? So moved. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just one comment to add to what Superintendent Horton said. The Assembly platform that we use, it is also very supportive of the public access to our agendas and all of our attachments that the public can easily find online, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It
All
does allow for that public posting of those documents.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Next action item I have for you in Group 1 is a resolution to fund purchases for the new Blake Bass Middle School. Approval is requested to advance funds from the general fund for the purchase of athletic equipment for Blake Bass Middle School. If approved, the system will be reimbursed as money is generated through gate receipts and other fundraising. As you may know, athletic programs are required to be self-supporting. With Blake Bass Middle School starting new, there aren't the funds there currently to buy those things. So this resolution would allow for them to purchase those items out of the general fund and be reimbursed once those funds become available. Madam Chair, I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent for a resolution to advance funds for purchases for the new Blake Bass Middle School. Is there a motion to approve? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Have they submitted a budget as to how much they estimate that will be?
We have developed a budget for them, and I would say no more than approximately $50,000 for equipment.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next action item I have for you in Group 1 is to approve the SPLOS 6 referendum and resolution. The referendum resolution is calling for a continuation of the SPLOS. Current SPLOS 5 is set to expire June 30th, 2022. If approved by the voters, SPLOS 6 would begin July 1st, 2022, ending June 30th, 2027. If this resolution were to be approved tonight, it would go to the Board of Elections, asking them to place the referendum on the November 2nd ballot for the general election. So, Madam Chair, I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the SPLOST 6 referendum and resolution. Is there a motion to approve? There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Next action item I have for you in Group 1 is to adopt the tentative FY22 budget. I'll call on Assistant Superintendent for Finance, Mr. Keith Chapman. Mr. Chapman.
At the last board meeting and the week following, we had our required budget workshops. There have been no changes to the budget since that time. We have here the document that will be advertised in the local paper and on our website. Has a general fund budget of $230,078,763. Total budget of $315,249,275. This includes our special revenue and capital projects. At this time, we do not have any debt service. I recommend that the Coweta County School System Board of Education tentatively adopt the fiscal year 2022 budget of $315,249,275, which includes a general fund budget of $230,078,761, and also includes approval of the salary schedules used to compile the budget. This tentative approval includes all federal programs such as Title I and IDEA.
Madam Chair, recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent to adopt the tentative fiscal year 2022 budget. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 6-1.
Next action item I have for you in Group 1 is ratification of emergency purchases. School system has had to make purchases under emergency conditions created by the recent tornado damage in order to mitigate the damage caused by the storm by preventing further damage to school system buildings and with the ultimate goal of getting all buildings ready for next school year if at all possible. Georgia law allows local governments to make such purchases under these conditions without the requirement of the bid process, since timing is of the essence in these emergency situations. Georgia law also requires that any purchase entered into under emergency conditions must be ratified. I recommend that the board ratify the following purchases which were entered into under emergency conditions. Our insurance carrier has agreed to cover the cost of each of these purchases, and a list of these purchases is attached. Madam Chair, I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation from Dr. Horton for the ratification of emergency purchases. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just, the total of that is $1,340,465, I believe. And you say that that is coming back through insurance proceeds as it progresses?
Yes, ma'am. As that process progresses, each of those have been sent to insurance and have been approved by them before we agree to make that purchase. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Next action item I have for you in Group 1, if I can get my computer to catch up, is to approve a proposal for adoption of elementary science learning resources. Approval is requested for the proposal submitted by STEM Scopes to provide digital learning resources for elementary science subjects. STEM Scopes' proposal cost is $37,257.45 for all science subjects in grades 3 through 5. This cost covers all 3 through 5 grade students, teachers, and support personnel for 1 year. An additional 5 years of use are planned pending successful implementation during the 2021-2022 school year. Madam Chair, I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation from the superintendent to approve a proposal for the adoption of elementary science learning resources. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Next action item I have for you is to approve a proposal for adoption of middle school science learning resources. Approval is requested for the proposal submitted by McGraw-Hill Learning Company to provide learning resources, textbooks, and digital learning resources for all middle school science subjects. McGraw-Hill's proposal cost is $457,775.29 for all science subjects in grades 6 through 8. This adoption is for 6 years. Madam Chair, I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent to approve a proposal for the adoption of middle school science learning resources. Is there a motion to approve? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Last action item I have for you in Group 1 is to approve a proposal for adoption of high school science learning resources. Approval is requested for the proposal submitted by Savas Learning Company and Cengage Learning to provide learning resources, textbooks, and digital learning resources for all high school science subjects. Savas proposal cost is $733,448.28 for all science subjects, except for forensic science, which would be provided by Cengage Learning. The Cengage cost proposal is $42,224. This adoption is for 6 years. Madam Chair, I recommend approval.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent to approve a proposal for adoption of high school science learning resources. Is there a motion to approve? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just one question on this. As far as the curriculum that we're using with the science, and I probably should have asked the same question with regard to STEM, do we have a review committee of parents that serve on that
Yes.
review the materials?
Yes, ma'am. Per state law and board policy, we do. And Dr. Donald White, if you'd like to describe that, that'd be great.
Yes, ma'am. We do have a large group of parents who took the time to review all of our materials. They represent a wide variety of folks from across the district, from various schools. I can't say that we have one for every single school, but we do represent the majority of the schools at all the various levels, whether that be elementary all the way up through the high school level. All of the books are aligned to Georgia science standards, and we ensure that that is the prime function of those books, is to support the standards and nothing more.
How are the parents that serve on these committees, how are they selected? I mean, because I've had people to ask me and they'd like to be involved. How would they go about doing that?
So by Georgia law, we are required to notify parents that they can participate in this. We have a website that's available to the public to give us feedback on the learning resources. Those resources are available online so that everyone can review them and give us our feedback there. We went through the principals, working with their school councils and other groups, and asked for their input, finding folks, because it was a fairly substantial process to go through all of the different options. So we went through them primarily as the main source, but then we also allow the general public to give us feedback as well.
I guess that what I'm saying is that I've looked on our website, Dr. White, and I can't find it. Is it clearly stated somewhere on the website so that people can identify it easily?
Yes, ma'am. It is under the Learning Resources tab on the school system website, where we have all of our adopted resources that are still available, even those that we've adopted many years ago are still available for public comment. On there, you'll note, if you go to that particular part of the website, that mine is noted for a adoption, so that this is the year for the adoption.
But no, I'm saying that if they want to get involved, how do they access information that gives them instruction and direction on how they get involved in being part of a review committee?
So to do that, we recommend that you reach out to the school principals, so that if you have some of your constituents who are interested in that, they need to make that their intentions known to the school principals. But they also, everyone has access to that website, and it has instructions on how to access all of the materials to be able to give their feedback.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
When's the last time this was changed in the system for elementary, middle, and high?
2008.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Yes.
This time I'll call on Mr. Keith Chapman to bring our board report and sales tax. Mr. Chapman.
May sound like a broken record, but we were under budget again for the month. Right now, we're 5.3 million under budget for the year. Do want to note, though, because of the ongoing costs with Union High School and the unforeseen nature there, a lot of our savings will be transferred to local construction at the end of the year to help offset anything we may run into next year associated with Union High School.
What's our reimbursement time frame on that? Do we know?
And we'll get to some of this a little bit later. Right now, we still don't have a clear picture of the exact timeline when we can, for lack of a better phrase, expect a number from our insurance company. We're still working through that.
One other note with our financial presentation, if you'll look at the bottom right-hand corner, there's one piece of additional information that we've added. There are new requirements for our financial reporting starting July. We already had in place everything that was required except for including the open purchase orders at the end of each month. We're not required to do this in July, but since it had been signed, it's in effect in July. We decided to go ahead and implement it since we received guidance on how to do so. So going forward, you will see the open purchase orders at each month there. Sales tax, again, another month of great results, over 2.7 million. Year over year, without our audit receipts, it's over 16% increase. So, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
Welcome.
This time I'll call on Assistant Superintendent Dr. Mark Guy to bring you staff and student attendance and your board goal report. Dr. Guy.
Thank you, Dr. Horton. For the 9th reporting period, the school with the highest staff attendance was Candlelight Elementary School. The highest student attendance in the program area was Maggie Brown. In the elementary area, the highest student attendance was Arbor Springs Elementary School. Highest student attendance for middle school was Arnold Middle School. And the highest high school student attendance, East Coweta High School, home of the Indians. Board goal report for this month, the Coweta County School System recently completed a 2-day annual administrative workshop. We held that at the Donald Nixon Center for Performing and Visual Arts this year. Featured topics for this year's workshop included a focus on school leadership, looking forward to re-engaging and opening school for next year. We also had a study of the book entitled, Is My School Better Because I Lead It? Sessions were held dealing with investigative procedures, handling chronic discipline issues, mindsets, and effective leadership. Both principals and assistant principals attended and shared reflective narratives from our past school year, as well as participating in team-building activities, and an overview of district special education services was also provided. On day 2, we opened with East Coweta High School's Echo Stage. The drama team performed a 1-act educational play, and administrators focused on strategies for student and staff support, safety, financial issues, student transportation, and educational legal issues presented by attorney Nathan Lee. This year's workshop was very productive and beneficial, and it allowed for a lot of great growth and collaboration among administrators.
Thank you, Dr. Guy. This time I'll go ahead with your facilities and construction report. The first item there on the list, of course, is the Northgate High School renovations and modifications. This is a big summer for us there. We're working on the admin area, the kitchen and cafeteria, So there's a substantial amount of work that will be going on the Northgate High School campus in the next 8 weeks prior to pre-planning. On the addition there at Northgate, the new addition area is now brought up to grade. There's been a lot of work on the underground storm drainage structures. Structural steel is being delivered, and we still anticipate completion there summer of '22. Blake Bass Middle School, we are getting really close. Furniture deliveries are scheduled to begin the week of June 21st. Ton of flooring work, mill work is nearing completion. I was out late last week, and they were at the point where they're washing off the parking lots of dirt to be able to get us into that. So we're right on track for substantial completion of that project on July the 7th. Bottle filler replacements are still there. We have completed bottle filler replacements at all schools and still working on some central office locations. The 4 schools that we've been doing HVAC and lighting renovations and modifications, those projects are moving right along, and we certainly anticipate that those will be completed prior to the beginning of the school year. Re-roofing at White Oak Elementary and Ruth Hill, those projects will begin this summer. We are experiencing some longer than normal lead times for materials. That is something that is impacting both our renovations, modifications, and our storm recovery. It's just a reality of the situation that we're in right now as far as materials, but we do anticipate that those projects will be completed later in the summer. Sewer connections, we're just awaiting final pay request and some closeout documents there. And then storm damage, I'm not going to spend too much time on storm damage this evening. We have some gentlemen here from Southern A&E, our architects and engineers, to provide us with a presentation on their views of the damage at both Atkinson Elementary and Noonan High School. So I'm going to ask those guys to come on, Mr. McCune, Mr. Schillinger, Mike Edson, and Mr. Cheek's back there somewhere. I know he's somewhere close. There's Mr. Cheek. So these gentlemen, they work with Southern A&E. They are our contracted architects and engineers who we've used for several years on a variety of projects, and they have a presentation for us tonight. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having us here tonight. We're going to give you just a kind of a high-level view of what has transpired and what is going on and the effects of it. We'll start first with Atkinson Elementary School. There was quite a bit of roof damage at that school. It has a variety of different roof materials. There's some standing seam roof, which seemed to be unscathed. We had some rubber roof areas up there, as well as a modified bitumen roof, just different kinds of materials applied in different ways. And as you can see in the next slide or two, there was significant roll-up of, or just ripping off of the roofing materials. I'm happy to say that most of that work has been worked on. It is substantially complete, which means it will be serviceable for occupancy when fall comes around. But as you can see, it was some pretty ugly stuff. But as a whole, there was some interior water damage that has been remediated. So we anticipate, Ronnie and his staff have been working on that a lot, and so we anticipate everything to be ready to go for fall at Atkinson. Now for the big one. A lot of damage happened at that school. I think this aerial photo is just really telling of the carnage that happened there, and it's just been problematic for everybody. This is kind of another telling view straight over all the roofs and things that are torn up. Damage at the football stadium. We have one light pole that went down in the tornado, and these are just some general pictures of what had happened there. This is kind of crazy. Seeing all this metal roofing laying on top of a building is difficult to see for some. This is a picture of that light pole, and just the force it takes to do that is something else. Okay, I'm going to go like building by building to talk about what happened at each building. The building that's colored in, that's the original building, 5010, admin and classrooms, and it was built in 1955. It suffered the loss of the roof membrane and all of the parapets. Now, when I say roof membrane, a membrane is anything from a rubber roof to a TPO roof to it's a flat membrane that is adhered to the insulation on the roof. So, and we suffered loss of most of the parapets on that building. For those who aren't familiar with the term parapet, it's a section of the exterior wall that goes up above the roof plane and sticks up, and as such it catches wind, and we received a lot of damage there. In some cases, the parapets collapsed on the roofs of the lower building. As you can see on the picture on the left, it just rolled it right over onto the existing roof. So a lot of power there. There was extensive water damage inside the building. The walls are constructed without cavities, and they do not handle moisture well. For clarity, buildings that we build today, the codes are different. We have to build them in a different way, and we use cavity walls. And that's typically a concrete block wall. It has continuous insulation that we apply to the concrete block. Then there's an airspace, and then the brick goes on. Believe it or not, brick absorbs water. And so water goes through the wall, but in the cavity wall system, it hits the water barrier that's there, which is the insulation, runs down, runs out the wall at the bottom through little weep holes. So just to explain that. And even where the membranes did not blow off, the bond between the membrane and the insulation under it is lost. The walls and the parapets on this building, or on the original building, are not reinforced, and that greatly contributed to the damage. This is a photo of the cafeteria wall, and as you can see, there's cracks there. There's cracks all over the walls in that area. Mike Edson here is my structural engineer. He's the guy who's been crawling around on these roofs and looking at everything. So I invite either one of you guys to ad lib as we go through if you have something you want to.
Before that picture passed, I just wanted to say what it was, the cafeteria. I mean, the more you uncover out there, the more damage you see, really. I mean, these cracks we didn't see until they removed chipboard from the wall. Wind there. And, you know, the walls may have had some cracks prior to wind. There's so many. It's literally the four walls of the cafeteria and really at every window. You know, they're just cracks.
And also included in Building 5010 is the auditorium. It had suffered some damage as well. That building has a tectum roof deck on it. Does anybody know what tectum is? Do you know what Excelsior is? Stuff that used to pack things in? The little stringy wood stuff? Well, that is what these panels are made of, and they're bound together with a cementitious material to make a thick board that has been used for the last 50 or 60 years, I'm sure, in different kinds of buildings. The roof on the auditorium, that's what it is. Problem with it, once the roof membrane is off of it, it softens that material, and it is no longer structurally sound. So the entire roof on the auditorium is not sound anymore.
Anymore?
Yes,
Are
ma'am.
they still
They
manufacturing
do.
it?
It is used more so today as an acoustical product.
Right.
So it does have some acoustical properties to it to reduce noise.
As far as roof panels, it probably hasn't been used much since the fifties.
Exactly, roof, what you're talking about. I've seen it used with acoustics, but
Mhm.
not.
Yeah, I'm a 66-year-old guy who started designing in 78, and I've never done this material on a roof in that time. It's always been prior, say 50s, 60s, something in there.
Okay.
Just to kind of explain to people, because I was looking at that when we were walking it, is that when it gets wet, think of a sponge that is totally dry and it's stiff. You know, if you bend it, it'll snap. But you put water to it, and then all of a sudden it just absorbs all this water and it just bends. And it's kind of the same type of material, is it not?
Yeah, the manufacturer of this material says cover it each night. It's when you put it on, cover it each night. Do not let this material get wet. And so, of course, you know, the ones that have this, there's just no way to prevent it from getting wet and getting wet multiple times. And what you typically see happen is it just begins to sag a bit, maybe mold, mildew, that sort of problem.
This is a photo of the front of the auditorium. If you look up above, it's got some visqueen across it to stop some of the water, but that's part of a parapet that was damaged by the wind. Moving on to building 5020, this is your music building. It also is a building that has a tectum roof deck, and it's a complete loss. Some pieces of the decking have fallen in, leaving the top of the wall unbraced. So the walls have multiple cracks, especially on the west end of the building. There's a portion of the wall that can be shaken just with your hand.
But you've also said that's the cafeteria and the music building, 5020?
Yeah,
That's in
it's part of the main.
5010? Okay, gotcha.
Right, the cafeteria doesn't have that roof system. You know, the buildings with that roof system are this music room building, the auditorium, the old gym, and a portion of the vocational classroom building.
Sir, when you said this was a total loss, just to clarify, do you mean the roof or the building? It's the whole-
I'm not ready to make that determination. We're talking about the roof deck.
Okay, roof, so you were.
It's lost its strength, and so it's no longer viable. Let's see, where are we? Go back up. We just wanted to point out that's just a close-up of a crack. We didn't know some of the damage until the wet gypboard was taken off the wall so we could actually see behind it. And you got a free skylight there.
There are multiple cracks in the west part of that building. A lot of them are where openings were filled in there at some point, but for now, it's just a really unstable situation with the wall.
One of the things that I will mention, if you've been by there since last Friday, you may have noticed that they have braced exterior walls on the majority of the remaining buildings at Newton High School, simply because the more that they inspect, the more they uncover, and the longer time goes, the more unstable things become. So now they have braced those exterior walls.
Do we happen to have, I know that you gave the age of building 5010, it's being constructed in 1955. Do we know the age of building 5020 and 5030 when they were originally built?
They're all the same year. Yes, ma'am. Okay, moving right along to Building 30. This is the old gymnasium. The building suffered the loss of the roof and had several roof panels that collapsed onto the bleachers below. All of the roof panels need to be replaced, and that is another Tectum roof. So all of that needs to be replaced. There will be water damage with the wood floor and the bleachers. There's a wood frame floor. The court floor is a wood framed floor over a crawl space. It's the only crawl space. Well, the original building has a crawl space too.
But it has a concrete floor.
But
As far as I know, this
okay.
is the only wood frame floor, probably. And it's deceptive because around the edges, it's a concrete slab. But for the basketball court itself, it's a crawl space similar to a house.
Right. And it still needs to be, that crawl space still needs to be crawled under and inspected. I think Mike did it years ago, but.
It's not that one.
Not that one? Oh, okay, okay. Okay, I think we've covered that. Again, the parapets and walls are unreinforced and have no cavity to protect against moisture, so at this point, we're still not certain what sort of issues we might eventually run into as a result of the moisture that was introduced to a lot of these buildings. This is building 5040. It's your vocational classroom building. The western half, or the half that's on the right-hand side of the diagram there, it also has a Tectum roof. We have a lot of Tectum roofs. So this, Mike says, this deck is a complete loss. And we couldn't find a picture of it, but there's one bar joist that we believe was hit by a flying mechanical unit that landed on the roof and bent the bar joist like this. And so if we can, that's going to have to be worked on. Let's see.
There are multiple cracks in these walls. That western half of the building is about 25 feet high. And on the picture on the right there, you can see a lot of cracks that have been repaired. The wall is full of cracks like that have been repaired in the past, but this storm made some new cracks. They don't show up quite as well. Like the photo on the left there has several cracks that you really don't see well in that photo, but they're from the wind. Say several of the Tectum tiles fell out, in that roof. You can see there are multiple places like that in that building. That's some of the parapet along that same building toward the eastern half, toward the front of it. The parapet just got really hard hit in certain areas, maybe impacts from things that were flying around.
Yeah, Mike did notice that a lot of some of the damage was impact damage of flying debris, which, like, you can see the mechanical units scattered across the roof. Some of those went flying and contributed to the cracks and the damage to the parapets. Building 5070, this was your athletic building, weight room, and it's just kind of a mess.
It's one that was a pre-engineered building, and with the damage that's due to that building. Pre-engineered means it's a metal building system. So it's designed by a third party. We don't know who designed it. It would have been so long ago. They may not even be in business now. Not- It's sort of, you'd sort of say that's modular, but that type of building, when it gets damaged to this level, there's not a good path to repair that building. You can't find another metal building company that's gonna come in and do anything with it. And because you don't know the sizes of frames and the strength of materials and that sort of thing. So it puts it into a category where it's just a very hard one to repair.
And I'd like to say we've all been working very closely with Dr. Horton and Ronnie and the staff here, as well as the insurance companies, the additional engineering firm that the insurance company is using. And so we are still waiting to gather all of their information to make a recommendation. I did want to bring up, this is something that is going on, and this is a plan that the superintendent and Ronnie came up with for opening school in the fall. And as you can see, the 5300 building there, that's the ninth grade academy, the two-story building there. It has 30 instructional units, i.e. classrooms. Up in the upper left parking lot, they're going to be setting a 10 classroom modular unit over there, as well as a modular unit that is office. So that'll kind of be the checking in point. In the parking lot adjacent to the ninth grade academy, there are going to be 2 more modular buildings installed there, each with 10 classrooms each. And the lunchroom is going to be a very nice tent, and that is set up.
Similar to Atkinson?
Yes, yes.
It was a nice tent. I saw it.
And the Max Bass Gym, it's being worked on. There's a lot of work that's been going on here that you may or may not know about. A lot of ongoing work, making sure things are secure, making sure water doesn't get in the buildings as much as can be helped. The Max Bass Gym, there's a good bit of work there to be done. Part of it is in process, but there's going to be, we decided to go ahead and try to get the interior work done as well. And in conjunction with that, the 900 building and the 700 building, 24 classrooms between those two. There's interior finish work, ceiling, floors and stuff that need to be done there to get it ready for school occupancy. But all told, you'll have 85 instructional units. That'll handle 1,625 kids, but that's by DOE formula, and just an instructional unit is basically a classroom. But that doesn't take into account some of the stuff that y'all do. Right.
A capacity number, as we've discussed in the past, is just that. It's a capacity number as determined by the state. When you get creative with doing things like floating some teachers into classrooms, when maybe another teacher's on planning period, you can up the number of IUs that you have available for students. So we'll be doing some of that to make sure that we can handle the approximately 1,700 students that will be on that campus. And then if you scroll down to the CEC portion of that, will also be, as we discussed last month, housing students at the Central Educational Center. And you can see the design of those portable classrooms there, right. Steve.
Thank you. And I made a math error. There's actually 26 units there, and it'll handle around 450 kids, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but that'll be determined. But in this scenario, this is in the parking lot at the CEC. The modular units are, is that blue? I'm color challenged.
Blue. for the
And the
purpose.
lunchroom setup will be a tent as well. A portable kitchen will be brought in, portable dry storage, and a portable cooler freezer, as well as an office modular as well.
You might say before you leave that previous slide, the newer buildings just fared a lot better than the older ones. The ninth grade academy just had some impact damage. Something hit the portico on the front and a couple of trees were down on the back of it. But other than that, it fared really, really well. The 900 building lost the roof, but it didn't really have any structural damage. And the 700 building had some slight structural damage. We've already issued drawings to repair that, but mostly the re-roof and the parapets. And the gym, well, there was a section along the south there where corrugated metal roofing was ripped up along with, the roof was a complete loss, but again, repairs are proceeding along, with that, so.
And we find ourselves oftentimes complaining about codes and codes changing all the time. But in reality, it's a good thing. They change codes, generally speaking, for something that makes things safer. And we were pleased that this newer building, because it is built to newer codes, fared really well through this tornado.
Do we have any idea, like the 700 and the 900 building, when were they originally constructed?
The 70s on one of them, Ronnie, and then
700 building was built in 2002, I believe. It's one of the newer buildings. 900 was
87. The 700 building was 87. So I guess in conclusion, it's been a lot of collaboration. Everybody's really trying to work together to assess what's going on out there. As I said, the insurance company, FEMA, GEMA have been involved, and we're waiting to get some final information from some of those folks to be able to make a determination.
thank you very much for coming. I felt that it was important. You've been hearing from, of course, me and Mr. Cheek over the last few months. I felt like it was important to have the experts come and give us their take on what they see. And it does beg the question, I believe, okay, where are we and where are we going? We've engaged the building inspector, the building department. Of course, we've been engaged with the insurance company and their engineering firm, and trying to reach consensus on repair protocols. Because the repair has to do a couple of things. It has to meet code, and it also has to be repaired to a safe condition, to use their engineering language. So we're working through that process to see what those repairs may be, if repairs are possible on certain parts of the buildings. We don't have those answers yet. We're still waiting on those. We have been engaged, board members, just so you're aware, system staff and I have already been engaged with FEMA to see what may be available to us in the event that insurance may not cover some of these things. So we're working that angle. And then, of course, the financial angle with the insurance company itself, I think it's separate, and it just takes time, because not only do we have the structural concerns and the damage, we're also talking about things like contents of buildings. So it's just it's a puzzle, and it's taking time, but I just want to once again remind you, we are working as hard as we can to get answers as soon as possible. And, the more time we have, the clearer things have become for us. So thank you guys for what you're doing. We're going to keep working at it, and hopefully have more to bring you next month.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, that's all I have.
All right, at this time, Typically at 7:15, we have 45 minutes set aside for public comment. I know we're running a little behind, but I felt it was important to hear from the engineers. So I'd like to go over some of the guidelines regarding public comment. We have 8 speakers signed up. To guarantee an orderly meeting and response time, I'm going to ask Mr. Robertson to be the timekeeper. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. The board will listen to each presentation without comment. After a presentation is made, each board member may respond if he or she wishes to for a period of no longer than 1 minute each. Only citizens of Coweta County or employees of the Coweta County school system may speak at the public comment portion. No grievances will be heard concerning any specific personnel action or any specific county employee, except through the grievance procedures set forth in the board's personnel policy. No one will be allowed to discuss any matter involving threatened or pending litigation with the Board of Education during the public comment portion of the meeting. No person attending the meeting will be allowed to boo, hiss, cheer, or clap, or otherwise show approval or disapproval for any speaker in any manner whatsoever. No signs or placards advocating any action or position are allowed. No personal attacks on any person will be allowed. Please keep your comments within the bounds of civility. No citizen or system employee will be retaliated against in any manner whatsoever for speaking on matters of public concern at the Board of Education meeting. And finally, any person not recognized within the allotted time for public comment will be rescheduled to speak at the next meeting, or they may submit their comments in writing. And I will just remind each speaker that you signed a form stating that you will agree to those guidelines as I've spoken to. And we will have our first speaker, Mr. Derek Boyd. If you'll approach the podium, please.
Mr. Boyd, just for clarification, I will give you a 2-minute remaining sign and 1 minute, and then that's the final sign, and then finish your last thoughts.
Good to go. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you. I want to say, let me start, I'm sorry, to start my little timer here. I want to say that I was extremely disappointed in a matter that involved my baby, one of my babies. Me and my wife just moved here from Virginia last year, today, June 8th. And so we thought that by bringing my kids and putting my kids in the best neighborhood, and we researched the Coweta County and Noonan, et cetera, and we thought that we were putting them in the best possible situation. May 20th, that didn't happen. May 20th, my daughter was working, one of my twins, I have 3 students that are in the Coweta County school system. And one of my daughters, I happen to be working from home today on this particular day. She came and she shared with me that another student sent her a swastika while working on a science project. And albeit, I said to myself, I said, perhaps if we were in a history class or something of that nature and they were doing some research on the atrocities, et cetera, then perhaps something like that would be, a little understanding where students would be able to, and again, I didn't think that students would be able to have access to that type of information because I can't even send my kids an email, but students were able to get this filth that they got, that they were able to have access to. So fast forward, my daughter gets this swastika, and I said, what in the world? Where did this come from? She's working on a project with 2 other fellow students, and their names are at the top of this project. And fast forward, my daughter says, because my wife is an educator. She's been an educator for about 15 years. And so I said to her, we educate our students and we tell them about the atrocities and we try to inform them and keep them informed. And we don't leave it to the school system to educate our kids. We supplement the education of our kids, right? And we want to make sure that they're productive citizens. So this particular day, in seeing this, I was extremely upset that my kids were exposed to this because we don't stand for this. We don't stand for this. And so what ended up happening was my daughter took a screenshot of it. And she says, Dad, this is, we talked about this, and I hope that I'm not getting near my time, but I want to make sure that I want to provide the context for this. And so I wanted to make sure that my daughters, when they saw this, we tell them, hey, listen, you know, you're not going to be a bully. You're not going to be bullied. And, you know, when we talk about and I hear the things, the changes and the progressiveness that you guys have going in the school system, I don't think that this particular experience that my daughter's experienced was reflective of that, right? And specifically, how it was handled. I immediately called the the principal. I called the school and I said, hey, listen, this is what's going on. This is an issue. My next conversation is going to be with Dr. Horton. And I said, immediately, I got on the phone and I started calling because I wanted to make sure that this issue is raised to the level, because for me, something as critical or something as significant as this, it needs to be brought out in public. And when I find out, and I'm a former law enforcement professional, law enforcement administrator, so I understand the roles and how investigations occur. And so to see the progression of this investigation, I was extremely disappointed in that my daughter was one of the last to be interviewed. That's one. Number two, I thought that something as significant as this, we should have put out some correspondence to the rest of the school, the district, to let them know that, hey, Dr. Horton, I stand against this. As the school superintendent, I stand against this type of behavior, and it won't be tolerated. One of the things that the thing that came to me immediately was that, hey, perhaps this is a larger issue. And I've been told through my investigation that this is a larger issue, that there is a systemic issue within Coweta County. And I said, hey, I'm a city boy from Virginia. And they said, well, you in good old Coweta County. You need to understand that these are issues that we have, which is when Dr. Horton called me, and in my opinion, he was very cavalier about, handling this matter. And I said, after my investigation, I said, this is a problem why it was so cavalier and why it wasn't handled as expeditiously as I thought it would be, because there's a larger issue. I can tell you, as a constituent, as a taxpayer, as a citizen, we've got to get in front of these things, these types of issues. We've got to make sure that no kid is going to ever be bullied. They need to be free. They need to be in an environment that's conducive for learning. And, as an educator, I asked my wife, what should I do? I'm sitting back and I'm struggling as a man and saying, look, I have to protect these little girls. I have to protect them and make sure that they are going to be safe, and that, any environment that they're going to be, I asked for them to be here. Me and my wife planned for these girls to be here, so we have to protect them. And so I don't think that on May 20th that my daughters were protected. With that, I'll turn in. I appreciate the opportunity. I wish I had more time, but thank you for my time.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Will say thank you very much for coming and speak for us. I think it's very important when issues like this are raised, that if you have it, to definitely come and speak for us. And so thank you very much. And I did appreciate your comment, and I actually wrote it down, that you understand that is not reflective of the school system, because it isn't. I know that matter has been looked into. We've spoken with staff, but to your point you made in regards to the systematic issue that racism, yes, that you spoke about during your public speaking. The school system, along with the county and the city and the district attorney's office and other municipalities in Coweta County, all got together to say, look, we understand there's something. So we all kind of pulled funds to address that. So it's not the answer I know you're wanting, but it's something. It's something that we as a board all voted for, and the other municipalities voted for as well.
A point of clarification. So I misspoke when I said that it's not reflective. What I meant to say that based upon the investigation and the information that I had, that it is reflective, which is why, and again, we trying to cram all these thoughts in, and I wanted to make sure that this is the information that was shared with me, because, I would not knowing anyone here and reaching out to my neighbors and other folks that are in the community, and I mentioned these things to them. They said, hey, you in good old Coweta County. And I know Dr. Horton is new here, but the thing is, they're saying that these issues have been here, and we've got to do something about this. And I know that the pandemic is something that's totally new, and if there was one other situation where the student was sitting in front of a Confederate flag, you know, in a classroom, and I know that with this whole pandemic and the postures, and we've got to get out in front of these things and say, you know, what's allowable during instruction time? Our students, did we put out any information, et cetera,
Yep.
to address those types of challenges?
And
All right, all
again,
right.
thank you, and I'll give you
Thank
my
you,
contact
Mr. Boyd.
information after.
All right, let's move on
Sorry
to
about
5 minutes, remember. All right, that's okay. Hakeem Greenhill is our next speaker. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hakeem Greenhill. I'm a 6th grade math teacher at Evans Middle School under the spectacular leadership of Ms. Harris, Mrs. Slayton, and Mr. Kemp. As we all know, this year has been unlike any other school year, and we have been faced with many unforeseen challenges. I would like to thank Dr. Horton, as well as all of the board members, for your guidance and efforts to safely return our students to the classroom. It is through this leadership that Coweta County continues to demonstrate that together we are stronger than a pandemic and a natural disaster as a tornado. I would like to take a brief opportunity to address our extraordinary teachers, our staff, students, and parents in the county. Through challenging times, we work towards better days as we demonstrated through unity, that courage outshines the fear of uncertainty. So we have adapted to the need of virtual learning. We changed to face-to-face instruction. And then for majority of the year, we took our teaching to the next level by doing both of those things simultaneously. No matter what obstacle stood before us, time and time again, we rose to the challenge, and we did what was right for our students, and we have so much to be proud of. Furthermore, I would like to take this opportunity to highlight some of the amazing efforts of my team members. At Evans Middle School, we set the tone at the beginning of the school year that we will focus on the social and emotional health of our community, we'll provide necessary grace, and we'll work on closing the gaps from the closure of the last school year. As we voyage through unfamiliar territory, we embodied grace as we strengthen our relationships with our students, our parents, as well as each other. From sanitizing our classrooms, serving hot cheese grits, covering each other's class, creating magical lessons, hula hooping in the cafeteria, and everything in between, we made this year as special as we could. When we decided to be educators, we had no idea 2020 would look the way that it did. But we did what we always do. We adapt, and we made it work. In short amount of time, our teachers found creative ways to teach and celebrate both face-to-face and virtual students. Some of our teachers used their planning time to drive to the homes of some virtual students who have shown engagement and participation all year round. We also created interdisciplinary summative escape rooms that challenged and engaged our students as they worked to discover which teacher kidnapped our beloved AP, Mr. Kemp. We honored students not only with academic awards, but candy awards that identified their unique personalities. And then also, at the end of the year, we had a block party that allowed our students to close this year by partying outdoors, dancing to a live DJ, eating grilled hot dogs and hamburgers, and dunking some of their favorite teachers and administrators in a pool of cold water. The excitement and smiles we had with our students reminded us all that our hard work and dedication was worth it. Together, we have managed to make this school year as enjoyable as possible as we celebrate the hard work of our students as well as our teachers. For these reasons and many, many more, I would like to thank all of the Evans teammates for going above and beyond the call of duty. Thank you to our bus drivers, our teacher assistants, our custodial, clerical, as well as cafeteria staff members for continuing to work with so much love and passion and being so flexible. Thank you, our administration team, for helping to empower our teachers by creating a positive and safe environment and making endless communication well beyond our normal work hours. And special thank you to our students, our families, as well as our community members. Thank you for showing empathy, patience, and perseverance as we navigated this year together. Together, we made the impossible very possible, and I'm excited to see what we do next year. Teamwork has truly been the motto for the 2020-2021 school year, so thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Greenhill. Next, we have Deborah.
Chairman, I'd like to
Excuse me.
comment on that. Sir, just wanted to say that this year was successful because of you and all the teachers like you that did double duty, that put in all the extra effort, and, you know, we can't thank you enough. We've said it every time we run into some of you at these different meetings, but it's because of people, it's yourself and people like you. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Deborah Carroll. Ms. Carroll? Good evening.
Hello, everyone. I came today because I came to see you about 6 months ago to talk about ethics reform, and it still seems to be an issue. I grew up here in Noonan, and when I was in the 3rd grade, that's when the schools were integrated. And so I got to experience this racial combination of people coming together. And let me tell you, it wasn't pretty at first. I got asked a lot of crazy questions when I got home every day. But we were Noonan strong, we persevered, and the next thing you know, I'm at O.P. Evans School. I'm one of the first classes to attend an open door school. And by then, Coweta is the leader in Georgia. We are doing things that had never been done before. I go to Noonan High School. Our teachers were switched out every 6 weeks because each teacher was so highly specialized in something. I got a better education at Noonan High School than I did attending college. That's how good the school was. We had pep rallies, we had parades, we had school spirit, and I loved it so much that when I got custody of my granddaughter, I moved back to Noonan so she could have those same experiences that I did. And I moved back, and oh my goodness, y'all, I thought it was 1967 again. I go to the high school, there are trucks with Confederate flags waving all over the place. Just recently, a group approached our Board of Commissioners suggesting that Coweta become a constitutional right sanctuary, basically suggesting that Coweta succeed from federal government. They even have their own logistics plan for a militia. I became so concerned that I contacted my commissioner, Mr. Tim Lassiter. Mr. Lassiter wrote me back, and he assured me that every Board of Commissioners takes the same oath that you all do, and that is to protect the Constitution of the United States. And they also assured me when I went to speak with them last week that they practice that oath 24/7, not just when they're in these 4 walls, but 24 hours a day. And I challenge you to do the same, because as a part of virtual school, it gave every, y'all, I'm shaking, it gave every parent a front row seat into the schoolroom. And what I saw disturbed me. I saw this right-wing fascism trickling down into our schools, into the curriculum that our students are taught. My granddaughter takes AP European history. Now, someone please tell me what Donald Trump has to do with European history. I'm pretty sure nothing. However, he was the topic of conversation every single day. I listened as religious rhetoric got worked in. I listened as a Mexican child was made fun of on how to say tortilla. And yes, I talked to the principal about it. But now I'm talking to you about it too, because I believe the problem begins here as well. And where silence is complacency. And I want to thank Ms. Amy D for speaking up on behalf of all of us parents and students that share these concerns. And I encourage you all to follow her example and not be complacent with these things. I ask you to please revise your ethics. I ask that to include that there be no hate symbols allowed, that there is no talk of politics in our classrooms. These high schoolers are about to turn 18. They're about to be old enough to vote. And it is not right for inside the school to be influencing how they vote. That is just so morally and ethically wrong. And again, I ask you not to allow symbols of hate, just as you discussed. And it is a long-term problem, and it does need to be addressed. And I then ask yourselves to hold yourself accountable as our Board of Commissioners. Hold yourself accountable to the oath that you took 24 hours a day. And I also ask you to hold yourself accountable to the same that you ask of your teachers. And that says that your behavior or conduct will not be detrimental to the health, welfare, discipline, or morals of students. And if you ask that of your teachers, I think you should hold yourselves to that. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening. And I hope the next time I see you that maybe we have seen some reform in the ethics of this board. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. Next, we have John Reidelbach. Is Mr. Reidelbach here? All right, we'll move along.
Pretty sure he thought he couldn't speak because somebody asked at the beginning of the meeting if he'd signed up 3 hours in advance, and I don't believe he thought he did.
Yeah, I have his form here.
Right, he turned it in, I saw him do it, turned mine in right behind him.
All right, we'll move along. Joshua A. Weta. Good evening.
Good evening. I have twice declined to speak here. Once for questions answered before they could be asked, once for a meeting rich with only good news, the mood of which I did not wish to spoil. Both times I found myself impure in my intentions, and I've had to take the time to search and rebalance my soul. So I'd like to begin with a truth I hold close to my heart, without which my words mean nothing. Linda Menk, you are a child of God and a beloved of heaven, and as much as I can in the moment before us, I love you. In that spirit, I congratulate you on your re-election as Vice Chair of the Coweta County Republican Party. Truly. You have been their champion on this board, and they have seen it and said so. But you have been the board's champion there as well, with kind words given on behalf of the district and the superintendent, asking for patience in the face of unthinkable challenges, a plagued storm, and celebrating their job well done. In that moment, which I was privileged to see with my own eyes, you spoke as a champion for all of us might, and for that I'm grateful and glad. I am not your enemy, and it is not in the spirit of malice, but of uncertainty, that I will ever be here as I am today. I am sure I will be back. But for now, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for upholding the safety, rights, and dignity of all people, not just the ones that voted for you, that support you, your politics, and your party. I want to thank you for not bragging that God has enriched your private business through the publicity of your conduct, even as you solicit funds for counsel to defend your speech and sue others for theirs. I want to thank you for not accusing others of orchestration, while orchestrating your own attacks, investigations, email blitzes, and rallies against this board. For not accusing others of manufactured outrage while fomenting rebellion, and telling a room of 100 people that what happens to you will happen to them. For not claiming that you're being canceled while seeking to cancel every other member of this board. For not advocating publicly for a partisan board that would allow you to handpick the replacements for every person in this room. I want to thank you for not belonging to and contributing to Stop Pagan Government Schools, a Facebook group which describes our schools as irreparably broken humanist indoctrination camps and advocates holy war against public education itself. I want to thank you for not stoking the flames of protest against you by attaching your public social media, and with it your face, name, and position, to racist, sexist jokes about the $50 Michelle Obama was offered to be in National Geographic. I want to thank you for never uttering the words, "Shoot those thugs on sight." I want to thank you for remembering that yours is a position of public trust and faith, dignity and honor, in which you have comported yourself accordingly at all times in word and deed. And I want to thank you for availing yourself when challenged to a better understanding of your values and intentions, and not simply letting the voters decide. I want to thank you, but in the sorry, clouded state of my present understanding, I don't know if I can or should. But I have faith and extraordinary hope that my questions and doubts will be answered in the fullness of time. I yield the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Weta. Next, we have Alan T. Brady. Mr. Brady?
Alan Brady, Sharpsburg, Georgia, 26-year resident. Lifetime Georgian. Can we go back to the teacher? It's got political. I hate it. More about that in a minute. Okay, my kids went to Coweta schools, graduated with a little trouble at the beginning, issues, but we got, later on, we came back to school, and all my kids graduated from Northgate, thought it was a great school. by the way, I think Dr. Coach Horton, possibly the hardest working man in Coweta County right now, except for all the women, I'm sure would disagree, but anyway. So I attended the SPLOST meeting that Dr. Horton and others presented, and I really appreciate the effort to explain everything, but I really enjoyed, by the way, this presentation these guys did. I'm an old structural engineer too, and parapets are a real thing. So are tornado shelters, by the way. I just started my research into it, but one of the things you learn in engineering is does something look right? Because a lot of times it doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's bad, wrong, it's going to cause a problem. So I observed what I've been able to see about the finances regarding that issue since 2013. And it looks like that the expenditures, although rising more, definitely more, far more than inflation, have been rising, but you know, not surprising. The per pupil expenditure seems relatively in line with most of the state. However, I noticed that two things are odd. The number of pupils seems to be stuck at 22,000. It's been that way for apparently for seven years. And the revenue seems to be rising faster than the expenditures are. And that seems to be a good thing for most of us, but when it comes from the taxpayers, it's kind of tough because we see our reserves going down and government's going up. So I see that our property tax, I observe my property tax bill every year, and it doesn't ever go down. It goes up a little or a lot, it varies. The millage rate, if it stays constant, that means the tax goes up. So my concern is with this reserve, and apparently it's going to continue to grow. I'm sure there are others that know the numbers better than I do. And with no specific commitment to a property tax reduction, it seems like a break in the SPLOST is warranted. I do plan to research it further, and I'll follow up with further comments, but I'm inclined not to support that now. Now, mentioning Mr. Reidelbach earlier, there's a number of people here, I think, who wanted to speak and weren't aware of the rules. So they've asked me, they did ask me to speak for them. I am speaking for them. They would like this: 25% rollback in the millage, an exemption for 62 years and older citizens. They'd like for it not to be on the ballot in the fall, but that seems like a done deal. Basically, they don't want any increase in tax. And so they're going to vote no on the E-SPLOST, and that's why. And finally, how much time I got? 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. I'm going to expand on this subject. I heard it mentioned, the word mentioned right out the very beginning, civility. There's a lack of civility everywhere. I just heard a couple of people use terms like right-wing extremist. By the way, that gentleman that was here, I'm sorry about that. My dad fought actual Nazis in World War II. He was shot at by them. There's a difference between a kid doing something stupid, he should know better, he should be taught history, and actual Nazis. Civility. My board member is under constant attack from statements like that. She was the honoree of a flyer that went out that had planned. Fortunately, it was canceled. I think that was smart thing to do. Said she's got to go. The voters of our district decide who's in and who's out. Unless there's misconduct, then it's up to the voters. We decide. And I don't know this firsthand. I didn't see it, but I hear tell there was a real uncivil incident at one of the E-SPLOST meetings by a member of this board, and I hate to hear it. So keep it to the policy and not the person. Stop with the personal attack. Stop with the name calling. I'm the one, I must be a right-wing extremist. It was my idea for Coweta County, my own idea, nobody else. I thought of it, and then I talked to people, and they thought it was a good idea. I'm no right-wing extremist. And that gentleman that they're conflating with our effort had nothing to do with us. We just want the First Amendment. Mr. Singley, 8th grade civics, taught me about that. And thank God we have it. Let's keep it. I think I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Next, we have Verna A. Funk. Ms. Funk, welcome.
Hi, I'm going to start with this because I know I'm on the clock. I wasn't sure how many I needed, but I am with the VFW from Dillon here in Coweta County. I haven't been in business for a while, knowing that the business actually I do have a business that is with me now. So I can share some of these. We just finished up. We just finished up with the Memorial Day. And one of the things that we did for Memorial Day is I got to speak. I got to speak. Normally it's a men's club or a real veterans person that stands up there, but I got to speak. I'm the patriotic instructor for our VFW auxiliary. I've been asked to actually go to our district and even maybe state to become their patriotic instructor. I know Mr. Brady from Scouts. I know Dean Jackson from Scouts. I've been around a lot of these people for a long time. I was a sub in your school before and after 9/11. I've been doing a 9/11 Candlelight Vigil since the day after. So I kind of wanted to do like a slight presentation for Northgate, but it wasn't ready in time. I do have a presentation for your American flag, but what is disturbing is that when I go around looking at American flags, a couple of weeks ago, at least I passed by this building, your state flag needs to be replaced. Sunday we're doing a flag retirement at the Veterans Club. So if you want to turn it in, I can pick it up during the week. But, and also going back to a lot of stuff, I do my 9/11 Candlelight Vigil downtown Noonan at the Veterans Park. I've been doing that since I took it from St. George, where Larry goes to church, down to the city, down to the town. And then I had the Scouts involved many years. Then we got the veterans involved for many years. Because of one of the things I've been asked to do is, as the patriotic instructor, is to do something for Gold Stars. And because I do this 9/11, my focus has been on the young men from Coweta County that are on that wall. And if you've never been down to the Veterans Park, you need to go, number one. And number two, it's a shame you haven't. Sacrifices, the cost of freedom. One of the things Northgate has done, and it wasn't until probably after doing more research, is that Ron Wolf, who I believe is retired, he didn't answer me, but they've always stepped up. For the last 10 years, I was able to call, yes, okay, call, and then they would say, yes, we'll be there. We had Irma, I had a surgery, I lost my husband, and then we had COVID last year, so they couldn't participate. Cost of freedom. You have five students that are on this wall. 3 of them went through the ROTC program. The first death was Jeffrey Blanton from East Coweta. East Coweta started participating recently, 2 years ago. We have Flag Day coming up, like I said. Your flags, sometimes even around the town, are disgraceful. They're not flying. I remember one time going from a scout meeting where Jefferson Parkway, I called the next day saying, is there a problem? Your flag is upside down. So I look at these things. I have my 4-year-old granddaughter looking at these things. She's going to be going to your schools in a couple of months. But these young men are our heroes. These young men need to be taught at your schools. These young men sacrificed their lives. They took an oath. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and apparently we have quite a few domestics. That I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same, and I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the others appointed over me according to the regulations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. They still live that. If they're home now and they've been retired for multiple years or many after that, we have a Gold Star ceremony that we're going to initiate this year. We want the participation of the ROTC. The veterans have been doing so much for your schools, for the children. We do elementary schools, we do art, music, writing, and when I found out that there's a lot of history not being taught, that's a shame. It's a shame on all of you for not teaching our history, because there's a lot of stuff to learn. And the other thing is I wanted to present this school board a certificate for flying the American flag at your building, because I would like to do to all the schools, but because of COVID, I've stayed away from it. So if I can just hand that to you, and I'll just.
I would like to say thank you for coming out. My son's an Eagle Scout. My husband is an Eagle Scout.
Nicholas Whitlock was an Eagle Scout.
Yeah, Nicholas Whitlock was a church member friend of mine. Know him personally.
He would have been at Troop 47 where he went to earn his Eagle at Troop 41. His nephew is in line to work on an Eagle sometime next year, which we are working on trying to do a Gold Star section of the Veterans Park. But
Correct. I know Captain Whitlock personally would have sacrificed.
Jackson, have your contact information so we can talk about the Gold Star ceremony.
which Jackson?
Mr.
Dean.
Jackson.
No, we started talking today. Like
Give
I said,
him your contact information.
we
so
started
can
out
get
with Johnny Brown years ago,
Yep.
and then he took
Thanks,
over.
Dean.
Thank you, Ms. Funk. Appreciate it.
May I ask a quick question just to clarify? I think that, Ms. Funk, what you're really wanting is ROTC participation from all of our high schools. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Encouragement to get our 3 high schools, our ROTCs to participate?
I have a thought process that's not quite worked out. I can submit that to me and then let me go back to you, because, you got heroes in the schools. I know we placed gold stars, each of the family that was at Memorial Day, and there was only one of them, which was James Whitlock, that was from Coweta County, that are on that wall. We had 4 other Gold Star families present, and they've relocated here, and that's why we want to incorporate them. But the thing is to get the ROTCs involved, because they started in the schools. And I have a plaque. It wasn't finished in time, but I want to present it to the ROTC. 9/11 is not a time to celebrate. We honor, respect, and remember. So
Verna,
I'd like to go to the school.
If you can get that information to Dean Jackson, we'll be happy to get with you and
Absolutely.
get our ROTC program involved.
Be there to acknowledge all their efforts.
Thank you.
Give us
Thank
the
you.
information.
All right, next we have Spencer Lewis.
Well, thank y'all so much for your time and being here this evening, especially in this very obscenely hot room. As a taxpayer, y'all really need to turn on the AC. It's been a very challenging year this year. I know y'all are probably glad the school year's over, but I know y'all's work does not stop. First y'all had COVID, then y'all had a tornado, and back in January when I last spoke before this board, y'all had some scandal regarding the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. It is my understanding that the voters must decide Ms. Mink's fate, which is fair. Y'all are all elected officials, except I don't believe the superintendent's an elected post. But I also did want to point out that, just like Ms. Minks made a decision to attend the protest that precipitated the Capitol attacks, this board's also made decisions as well. Y'all's continued silence has been deafening. As I've watched the meetings online and in person occasionally, I've only noted really one member of this board who has ever really spoken out, and that's Ms. Amy Dees, and I would like to thank you for your courage to speak out and support right whenever there's a lot of wrong in the world. With y'all's silence, I would like to note that silence is deafening at times. It shows a support, whether it's spoken or not, but the lack of speech shows a support for that kind of behavior, Cubanism, insurrections, and the latest, the hypocrisy that's been displayed through, voting on certain things and then publicly speaking out against them. This is the same sort of ideology that caused the insurrection back in January, that it's an agenda that tried to turn our county into a constitutional rights sanctuary. Fun times at the Board of Commissioners last week. And then has also turned this board into a circus, continued circus, over and over and over again. We see it too often, we see it too much. I do ask that y'all step up, y'all speak y'all's mind, and stand up for the rights and values that I hope that y'all have. Hope being the key word there. When I was last here, it was mentioned that a certain board member missed training to be up in D.C. on January 6th. In that, in her rebuttal, she mentioned that she had offered to pay for the training. As a newer member here to Coweta County, did a little digging, and I would also like to ask to pay for the some $200,000 some odd dollars that she cost us taxpayers a couple years ago in the turf bidding scandal. We all like to say that we support the First Amendment, which is fair. We all do. I love it, to be particularly honest. But also I realize the First Amendment always has its consequences, which is always nice whenever you have somebody who loves their First Amendment rights but would love to seek litigation against anybody else expressing theirs, or at least threaten it. We had one member who spoke before me who mentioned swastikas in the school system. I don't hold y'all directly responsible for this, but y'all's silence has been deafening on issues related to neo-Nazism and the like. Had another member who mentioned lowering our tax bills. This is something that came before the county commissioners last week, and I would like to ask y'all not to vote on the, or not to separate the tax bill, and also to actually make y'all's voices heard and censure Ms. Minks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Are there any board comments? All right. Is there a motion to approve to enter into executive session to discuss personnel, real estate, and potential litigation?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. We're adjourned.